Welcome to the LsBluu YouTube channel, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you're obviously trying to do some LS swap stuff with an S10, like this piece of junk here. And also, you're probably interested of what happened to this truck due to the title of the video. Let's go over what happened to the S10 first, and then I'll get around to how I can help you save a little bit of money or trouble with your LS swap. So we're going to take it back to around April of 2019 when the issues with this thing began. We were at a local race event in Mexico, and the truck wouldn't start. Don't know why. We was on the side of the road trying to figure it out. We worked on it for about an hour. We eventually got it going, and I don't really know what it was, but we got it going and didn't have an issue with it for another solid year. Now we're in the middle of 2020, around May of 2020, and I start to develop a voltage issue. And I'm sure all of you guys have, if you're a long-time subscriber, then you have seen all of these issues on my YouTube. The voltage issue was a very difficult one to track down. You'd go wide up on throttle and it would drop down to about 10 volts. No idea what was going on there. Replaced the alternator, added new cables, new grounds, and eventually it worked itself out and we were able to kind of hold good voltage during wide open throttle, and I didn't have an issue for another year until the fatal issue with the truck in late September 2021, when we started developing a start issue and a drivability issue, just all kinds of issues. So after LS Fest 2020, you remember the burnout challenge that we did where the headers were glowing solid red. Well, I believe that was the original issue that started the issue the following year. There was another issue in 2018 with the truck where my radiator hose got into the alternator and cut it and sprayed everything down with coolant and water. And over the years, I think that corroded a lot of my fuse panel and my relay box. Everything was just corroded, and it took it a while for it to eventually show itself. So fast forward back to 2021, and we're trying to figure out what's going on with the truck. It's got a misfire and it's just not running right. It's not starting very good. If you want to look back to my video, Strange Problems Are Strange, that's where all these issues begin. I will leave a link in the description if you want to check those out after this video. But those strange problems were very strange. The truck had a no start condition. It would fire and immediately die.
Alright guys, 5.3 LS truck intake, well Gen 4 truck intake, standalone wiring harness, fresh O2 sensors, LsBluu truck computer, and it's doing this.
I didn't film this because I was very aggravated and honestly there wasn't nothing to film. I didn't know what to do. So I eventually determined that it's done. The truck is done until I get a new wiring harness or a new computer. And so that's when everything started, you know, what it's to now. So when we started, it was middle of October, and I decided that I was going to re-LS swap my LS swapped S10 and build it back even better, even faster, and make it just LsBluu 2.0, as I called it. So we pull the engine out, and I'm going over all the wiring and looking at everything, and I find it. I find the culprit to why everything changed with the S10. Why it's getting a terminator, why it's getting a new transmission, a new intake, everything. It was the crank sensor and the crank sensor wiring. That brings me to the point where I'm going to try to tell you how to save money in the long run. Yes, it will cost you a little bit more money up front, but in the long run, it'll save you. And that one piece of advice is don't cheap out when you're doing this type of stuff. I'm not bashing the dude that built my harness, but I did cheap out and not go with like a BP Automotive or Current Performance harness. I went with a feller who had a harness in his garage. He took it all apart. He rewired it and reworked it to be a standalone harness to work with a 4L60 and a 5.3, which was fine. It worked perfect. But then it started you know, the factory harness started showing its age. And Current Performance and BP, I'm pretty sure they build brand new harnesses. And they're professional built. I'm not knocking this guy. He did an excellent job with it. But it was still a reworked truck harness. And if I'd spent a little extra more money, I could have got a brand new one. And we wouldn't be doing this right now. At least I don't think. But that is the main piece of advice that I'm trying to give in this video. It might not be what you're expecting. It might be exactly what you're looking for. But don't cheap out when you're LS swapping your S10. And, you know, sure, you can get cheap headers and whatever. But on important stuff like a wiring harness, if you're building something you want to daily drive, don't cheap out. If you're building like a street toy or something like that, it's whatever. This truck is going to be a track toy. It will no longer be a daily driver. So there is that. So if I helped you out any at all, please let me know in the comments. Give it a like, subscribe. Don't make the same mistakes that I made and not, you know, get good stuff. And make sure you do everything right, because there's some stuff that I did that wasn't right. And quite frankly, I'm kind of ashamed of. So make sure you do everything right. Don't cheap out on important stuff. And there won't be nothing to worry about in the long run. Like, you see me 4 years later having to replace the wiring harness because I cheaped out on it.